Hi, I'm Mia St. John, and you're listening to Fascination Street podcast.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with five-time boxing champion Mia St. John. Mia St. John held the WBC, IBA, and IFBA championships and also was a champion in Taekwondo. In this episode, we talk about why she got into boxing, some of her experiences in the boxing world, including working with legendary fight promoter Don King, and an epiphany that she had while fighting a rematch against the great Christy Martin. We also talk about sobriety and the struggle to stay sober during the COVID-19 pandemic. We talk about some of the things that happened in her life that made sobriety a little challenging, so to speak. And we talk about her activism for both mental health and the homeless epidemic, and her foundation, the Mia St. John Foundation, which helps with education in poor, rural Mexican communities in Mexico, as well as mental health and the homeless here in America. And finally, we talk about her new book, coming out in December. It's her memoir called Fighting for My Life, available for pre-order everywhere. This is my conversation with Mia the Knockout St. John.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, Mia St. John. How you doing today, Mia?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
It is 100% my pleasure. Now, folks listening, Mia St. John, that's right, the Mia St. John, five-time boxing champion, including WBC, IBA, and IFBA champion. Also, she was a Taekwondo champion. How nuts is that? Mia, where were you born and raised? Where'd you grow up?
That's a tough question. I was born in San Francisco, but I only stayed there for like 2 years, and then we relocated to SoCal. So I'm actually an LA girl.
So what made you get into boxing? I mean, please take this in the spirit in which it is intended. You don't look like a boxer is supposed to look.
Well, I mean, I guess that's for people who really don't follow boxing, because there's a lot of good-looking people in boxing. Sugar Ray Leonard, Oscar De La Hoya, Layla Ali. So, yeah, I always have a hard time answering that question because there's so many good-looking people in boxing.
Okay, well then just, how about why boxing in general?
Well, you know, I was always a fighter. I started at a young age because I grew up in the era of Bruce Lee, and that was really popular back in the 70s. And my dad was a huge martial arts fan, and he's actually a nuclear engineer, but he was just fascinated with the martial arts. And he put me in Taekwondo when I was 6 years old. I competed in that sport for many years before deciding to turn pro in boxing. And that happened after watching Christy Martin fight on the Tyson card. And I said to my coach, you know, I want to turn pro. I was going to turn pro in kickboxing, but there really wasn't much money in it. And then I had my heart set on the Sydney 2000 Olympics. But then after seeing Christy Martin, I said, no, I want to go pro in boxing. And I was always in love with the movie Rocky back in the 70s. So I told my coach, no, I'm going to turn pro in boxing. And he said, you're crazy. You're never going to make it. And it's too rough of a sport. But I started training, and I sent a letter to Don King Promotions because I wanted to start with the best, which everyone said, that's crazy. You don't start at the top. You work your way up. But I just felt like, you know, I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to start at the top. And so I wrote a letter to Don King, and that was that. He signed me.
Now, Don King is known for being a larger-than-life personality and a legendary fight promoter. What was it like to work with him? I know you didn't work with him for that long. What was it like when you did work with him? How was he?
Yeah, like all the rumors that you hear about him, I don't know how to say this. Let's just say I didn't get the money I was promised. I got a lot of money, but just not what was promised. And it's useless to sue Don King. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. And that's when we decided to leave King and go with Aram. And I really wanted that anyway, because I always wanted to open for Oscar De La Hoya. So it was actually what was meant to be anyway. And I've been friends with King and his children for many years. I still talk to them to this day. So, all of that is past us, and we've developed a good relationship over the years. So there's no hard feelings.
Gotcha. So you moved on out of a business decision. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, you did mention earlier that one of the reasons that you wanted to become a professional boxer was because you saw Christy Martin fight, right?
Right.
You eventually fought her a couple of times, and for a while, she was kind of your nemesis.
She was.
But during one of your fights with her, I think it was maybe your second one, you had an epiphany while you were in the middle of, forgive me for saying this, beating her ass. Can you tell me about that epiphany that you had during that fight?
Yeah, I knew that I was beating her, but in the last round, she did something that I don't think anyone has ever done in boxing. She just put her hands down and stopped fighting. And something came across to me as I was pummeling her. My punches were getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And I realized, because I was slowly realizing what I was doing to her and how it just didn't sit well with me. And I felt like I'd rather take a chance in the judges giving her the fight, because that's what I was worried about. I was going to get robbed. They're just going to give her the fight. And I knew if I knocked her out, I would take the decision out of the hands of the judges. But I decided to risk it and stop and just grab her and hug her, because I realized that nothing meant more than a person's life, like no belt, no amount of money, no championship, nothing was more important than someone's life. And I made that decision in a split second.
So she became human, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, she did. And, that's something like, as a fighter, you always have to take out of the equation. You cannot view your opponent as a human being, because then it puts feelings in there, and you have to really focus on winning the fight at all costs. But, I'd grown a lot. I mean, I was older by then, and I'd been through a lot. I've had a long career by then, and I just felt like I evolved. I grew as a human myself.
Gotcha. I know that you have, quote unquote, retired from boxing several times without stating your age, because that's nobody's business. Do you think you're retired for good this time?
Well, our weight and our age is public record. I'm 54.
Well, do you think you're retired for good this time?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm 54 years old. I mean, fighters have no business being in the ring at that age, fighting a pro fight. I mean, it's just too dangerous for our health.
That makes sense.
Our brain cells stop repairing, I think, when you're somewhere in your 30s. So, yeah, no, it's...
Well, good for you. I would also like to think that I'm done fighting, but who knows? Maybe I'll say the wrong thing at a gas station and somebody will knock me out.
Yeah, well, let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Now, transitioning a little bit. Oh, are you comfortable talking about sobriety?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely comfortable.
You had like 30 years of sobriety before some things happened. And before we talk about that, I gotta ask, if you had that much sobriety, that means that you got sober right around the age you were legally allowed to drink. What? Why? Why would somebody...
I wasn't even legally allowed to drink. I think I was like 20, just about 21. So, yeah, I wasn't even legally allowed. But I started at a young age, so I was ready to quit by then.
So at that point in your young life, things had gotten out of control enough to where you decided that you needed to be a sober person?
Yeah, and I'm not even sure that, it wasn't like a lot of bad things were happening, but just any alcoholic experiences, bad moments in their life. Some are worse than others. Everybody has a different bottom. But for me, it was a lot of depression and anxiety and just humiliating moments and just wanting to live a more productive life.
Got you.
So it wasn't like I was arrested or ended up homeless or anything like that. It was just wanting to live a happy, productive life.
Kind of like an epiphany.
Yeah, I guess you could say I had an epiphany and realized I wanted more out of life.
Yeah. At that young age, you were like, you know what? I could see the writing on the wall. This really isn't going to make for a great rest of my life. It's time to make some changes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, like I said, you had like 30 years of sobriety, and then something happened and that changed. Can you talk a little bit about that? Whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, the worst moment of my life. I had put my son in rehab, even though my son grew up in AA, he grew up in the program, seeing me take chips and cakes. And me and his father did everything we could to teach him about sobriety and addiction. He still took our genes and became an addict himself. He was in and out of many rehabs and mental health facilities, and we put him in a place in Long Beach, California for the 100th time. And he would always call me to come get him out. Mom, come get me out. I promise I'll never do it again. He was the love of my life. That was my little boy. And I would always go get him out thinking that was the last time and he would never do it again. But his father at this point said, no, I refuse to let you get him out this time. He's got to stay and get sober and get on the right med. So I left him in there, and the hospital neglected him, falsified records after he died. And he ended up taking his life in the facility, and that was the worst day of our life. And it's just something that you cannot recover from. And his father, unfortunately, could not recover from it.
I am so sorry about your son.
Thank you. And it's not that I'll ever recover from it either. It's just I've had to learn coping skills to deal with my grief without drowning it in alcohol, because I relapsed and now I'm sober again. But now, I have to learn other coping skills to live for my daughter, who is now fatherless and brotherless.
So your children's father, I know that you said that your daughter is now fatherless. What happened with Mr. St. John?
Well, he ended up relapsing as well and decided one day that he just felt like he could not live with what had happened, and he drank himself to death. And that was probably the second worst day of my life. And we had a long conversation before he passed. Minutes before, we were on the phone. He had called me that morning. It was Super Bowl Sunday, 2019. Of course, I did everything to talk him into wanting to live. He had two daughters, one with another marriage, and our daughter. And so I kept reminding him that we had to go on for our daughter. And it's just like nothing I said resonated with him, even though, he loved his girls so much. I think he was just in so much pain. He was in so much pain, he just didn't know how to live.
So, pardon the phrasing, but was that 1-2 punch of losing your son and your ex-husband, is that what ultimately led to your relapse? Was it the combo?
Definitely. At that point, I just felt like I cannot feel anymore. I don't want to feel anything. I don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to feel the grief. I just could not live with what had happened.
Well, I'm glad that you did.
Thank you.
I can't imagine the pain and the hurt and the struggle, but obviously you're a fighter and you are still fighting. So well done. Keep that going.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Welcome to the Player Series. I'm Gary Player, and throughout the series, we're going to take you through incredible stories, conversations with legends and current players, perspectives on current events in and around golf, and much more. Don't forget to subscribe to the Player Series on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.
Let's get back into it.
What was it like to try to become sober again, but this time during a worldwide pandemic where you can't leave the house?
It was ridiculously hard because our AA meetings had been shut down, and going on Zoom, which we still had, was just not cutting it for me. I would shut the camera off, the video off, and I would drink behind the camera.
During an AA meeting on Zoom?
Oh, yeah, like many during the pandemic did, which is why we saw such a rise in addiction and relapse during the pandemic. We saw a rise in suicide rate, addiction, alcoholism. The relapse rate went up. I mean, it was horrific for those of us suffering from addiction. So my story was not unique. It was the norm.
But you're sober now, right?
I'm sober now. Well, our meetings opened back up. I was able to go back to physical meetings. I also, my attorney filed a lawsuit against Mayor Garcetti, and we were able to settle at a court and allow our meetings again. So definitely easier, not easy getting sober, but easier than when we were in the pandemic.
Well, I didn't know that you sued Garcetti. Was that specifically you sued for the right to be able to have AA meetings in person again?
Yes, because I felt like shutting down our meetings that I felt were a necessity to our lives, to our well-being. He authorized alcohol delivery during the pandemic and bars to be open in the beginning before they were shut down. So I felt like, we have liquor stores on every corner, liquor stores that remained open, and now alcohol delivery. And yet to say that our meetings were not a necessity was beyond ignorant. And you can see the results of it, like all the deaths that have happened as a result of the pandemic. So to say that our meetings were not essential, I couldn't even fathom that. Like, how is that possible? And so the only thing I needed to do was to sue him.
Well, it worked. I know that you sued the hospital or the psychiatric facility that your son was in when he passed.
Yes.
And you used Mark Geragos. Did you also use Mark Geragos to sue Garcetti?
Yes, of course.
That's hilarious. I did not know that when I reached out to him to ask him to see if he had anything nice to say about you, because I'm not as friendly with him as you are, but I'm sort of friendly with him, and we chat sometimes. And I told him I was going to be talking to you, and I asked if he had anything to say about you.
Uh-huh.
And he said, and I quote, "She is my heroine and an inspiration."
Yeah, me and Mark, as a result of our relationship with the lawsuit, we had become very good friends. And, as you can imagine, like, the lawsuit took a few years to settle. So we had a lot of emotional moments. And in fact, I just saw him in New York. We just had dinner. He just became a very good friend to the family.
Very cool. So how long right now do you have sober?
I don't really want to reveal that right now.
Perfectly understandable.
I'm doing well, and I have a good amount of time. I just don't want to reveal too much about my...
No worries.
Yeah.
I did also ask mutual acquaintance Dr. Drew Pinsky if he had any words of encouragement for you. He said to make sure you remember how much better and sweeter life is when you're sober and that it works if you work it. Now, do you still have your live radio show on Voice America?
No.
All right, moving on.
No, it's just that was during the pandemic, and it just got all to be too much, but I enjoyed it very much at the time.
Gotcha. How about this? What can you tell me about the Mia St. John Foundation? What is it and what do you do?
Well, thank you for asking. I started my foundation sometime in the midst of the height of my career. And I did that because I felt like, even though I was born and raised in America, my family is from Mexico. And I felt like I wanted to give back to the place where not only a place that had given me so much, but had given my family so much. And so I started the El Saber es Poder Foundation, which means knowledge is power. And we actually started in Mexico, where my family's from, in a place called Barrio de la Cantera in Juchipila, Zacatecas, Mexico. And we donated a computer lab with internet, electricity, computers for the barrio in Juchipila. And we were there for the cutting of the ribbon and the whole setting up the computers, and got to meet all the kids. And it was great. We did that with Hewlett Packard and Micron. Micron was a huge supporter of ours and actually did the bulk of the work. Then we moved to the United States, and we're still in Mexico, but we have programs here now in the United States. So Mexico is for education, but in the United States, it's for mental health and homelessness and addiction.
Do you think that those three things go hand in hand?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I mean, yeah, I could go into a whole show just talking about our homeless crisis in LA, but I digress.
I read somewhere, I think it was today, I read that LA County has something like 180,000 homeless people in it.
I don't know the exact number. I know that about 60,000 of those people are centrally located on Skid Row in downtown LA.
Wow.
I don't know the total number, though.
Sure.
But yeah, it's absolutely shameful.
Where can people go to donate or to see what else they can do to help the Mia St. John Foundation?
Sure. You can go to miastjohnfoundation.org, and you can read all about the programs that we do, and you can also donate there as well.
Nice. I think I saw that you're writing, or you wrote a book called Fighting for My Life. Are you done with that book? Is it out?
It's done, and it's available now for pre-order, but it doesn't actually come out until December.
Gotcha. What's the book about?
So it's my memoirs, and it's about my life growing up, my career, and like it says, a mother dealing with grief, the aftermath of the loss of my son. So yeah, that's available for pre-order online right now, but it also comes out in a hardcover in December.
Do you think that you'll be doing, COVID pandemic permitting, do you think you'll be doing a book tour to support this book?
Yeah, we actually start in September and it runs through December.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I don't know all the websites, the publisher's website for sure, which is Post Hill, but you can also just go on Amazon.
Gotcha. Everybody go pre-order Fighting for My Life by Mia St. John.
Yeah.
Mia, I know that I have kept you. I appreciate your time. Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Mia St. John Boxer or Instagram at Mia St. John Boxer, and I'm also on Facebook.
Gotcha. And before I let you go, is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about today?
No, I think you just about covered everything. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. You're so kind. Mia, you have a great weekend, and hopefully you have wonderful weather and you can go outside and not have to wear a mask.
Yeah, let's hope so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mia. You have a great weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. As always, thanks for listening, Streetwalkers. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter at FascinationSTPD. On Instagram at Fascination Street Pod. Follow the podcast page on Facebook at Fascination Street Podcast. And of course, you can always email me at fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and rate us on iTunes. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sapphire. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.